Do you want to learn how to get retired, stay retired, and enjoy your life to the fullest? This is the Retire Happy Podcast with certified financial planner professional Jeremy Finger. Jeremy will be your guide to happiness as he discusses the art and science of retirement, breaking down the complicated information to help you make good financial decisions without worry or burden. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to Retire Happy with Jeremy Finger. Jeremy, what's going on?
Oh, just living life, buddy. Helping people get retired and stay retired.
We like that. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Staying retired, that's the most important part of that sentence, I think, right?
Yeah. A lot of people don't want to get to the end and it be the end. So.
Yeah. Okay, well, that makes sense. Hey, I know you've got a special guest on the show today. Who'd you bring on the show?
Oh, I brought President and CEO David Anderson with Anderson Brothers Bank. He's going to talk a lot about interest rates,
Okay.
Big banks versus small banks, and what it means to really deliver customer service and how that differs, again, from small banks to big banks.
Okay, well, I'm excited to learn, and thanks for bringing him on the show. Have fun.
Yeah, absolutely. David, welcome to Retire Happy.
Glad to be here, Jeremy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. A little bit of background. My family has known your family for a very long time from Mullins, South Carolina. And well, tell us a little bit about yourself and Anderson Brothers Bank.
All right. I'm in Mullins, which is about 50 miles inland from Myrtle Beach. And I've lived here all of my life. I'm 64 years old and been working here at the bank for 42 years. Not only that, I've been working in the same building for 42 years. So how about that? I've been CEO almost 30 years, since 1993. And,
wow.
So it's been a long time. This has been my whole career.
Wow.
Yes, I do. I remember your dad very fondly. I got to know him in the mid 80s. I think he was the first person that I knew that had a satellite dish. And that's when they were ginormous. He had one in his office there on Main Street here. And he had it so he could watch CNBC.
That's 100% correct. And in a little bit of tidbit, that's the whole reason why I'm a financial advisor.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, because I couldn't, but this big satellite dish has only got one channel, and so I'd have to be forced to watch the CNBC versus my Scooby Doo.
Yeah, he loved business and loved investing, no question.
That's right. Well, it's if you care to, it seems like a crazy interest rate environment we're dealing in right now.
It is. Rates have been so low for so long, and now they're headed back up. And I think we're in for another 75 basis points increase, and maybe another 50 after that. Of course, I'm old enough. I was here I started with the bank in 1979, so I was here for Paul Volcker, and the prime went up to 18% or whatever it is. The long bond went to 16%, and of course, we were all kicking ourselves a few years later when we didn't buy the loan bond. But it was crazy, much more crazier times then than now.
Yeah, it does seem that way. Any thoughts on what you think may happen in the future? I know that's kind of
in regards to interest rates.
Yes,
I'm like everybody. I don't have any more insight than anyone else here, but I assume they're going to continue to go up for, like I say, another point, or I don't think they go up 2 points more, but I think we're in for some more increases.
All right. Understood. Well, a lot of times, people who are retired or business owners, they have choices in the types of banks that they use for anywhere from checking accounts to loans and things like that. Can you maybe share a little bit of insight on, talking about a local bank like Anderson Brothers and what y'all do that are maybe different than a lot of the bigger institutions that are out there?
Yeah, we've got a lot of insight into that over the last few years with PPP. Just to tell you our PPP story, of course, this was March and April of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And we were pretty fast off the gate with offering PPP. I created our chief operating officer, Rusty Richardson, who I'm sure you know,
mm-hmm.
The CPA by practice, but he's been with us for a number of years and he's now our chief operating officer. In the first week before PPP, we had about $20 million in applications that we had taken in just a very short period of time. And we've kind of figured that'd be the peak of it. That'd be all that we'd have, and it would go down from there. But in any event, we had no credentials with the SBA. We didn't know anybody at the SBA. Nobody at the SBA knew us. We had no way to get into the portal. So we were at a loss to what to do with all these PPP applications. And Rusty, bless his heart, on a Friday afternoon, he said he was going to get in that portal somehow. Saturday morning, about 7 o'clock, I got an email from him. He said he was in the portal and he was entering applications. And so he assembled a team for that Saturday. They worked all day until into the night, entering those PPP applications. And we were closing PPP loans Monday before most banks even figured if they were going to be in the program or not. So that's a huge example, I think, of how a small bank can respond. And the interesting part about that, we did about $150 million in PPP loans total.
Wow.
And about 40% of those, or full 40% of those, were non-customers. Of course, they're our customers now, but they couldn't get the service they needed from their bank. And in most cases, it was large banks.
That's 100% the truth. And I don't know how many people, I have certainly referred numerous business owners over to you guys for that. I had, truth be told, David, I forgot about it, but that's true. You reminded me that so many banks weren't doing that or were late to the ball game on that, and then I referred them over to you guys, and y'all took great care of them. So well, being nimble and quick and on the forefront of being able to take advantage of opportunities when they come around.
Well, one of our things on our commercial side of our business, our thought is we make it easy, and we do. That's our competitive advantage is making it easy on our commercial customers. And that was certainly an example. And our branches, our Murrells Inlet, Grissom, and Conway Church really led the charge on that. We're closing those loans. And they were glad to see the program end because it was working them pretty hard, as you can imagine.
Well, I guess sometimes it's when there's hay, when you can harvest the hay, go do it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Gather rosebuds while ye may.
That's right.
And there you
go. That's great. But that's certainly. What else? Can you give us a little bit of background of Anderson Brothers? I fun thought. I didn't realize this, but y'all were a clue on Jeopardy not long ago.
Yeah, I was home that afternoon. And all of a sudden, my phone started buzzing. My first call was from my brother, my oldest brother, Neil. And I thought, this is not good because he never calls me at home. But anyway, I just started getting messages and whatnot. And sure enough, I had no idea so many people watched Jeopardy. And we had no clue that was going to be coming up. But they found something on the internet that fit their category. And we were a clue on Jeopardy.
Okay. Well, give us a little bit of background of what the of Anderson Brothers Bank and maybe even the clue on Jeopardy, because I can't remember really exactly what it was.
I can't remember what it was either, but I got a video of it. I got everybody that knew me that could send the video, send it to me. But let me make one other point about why people might want to bank with a small bank.
Sure.
We had after PPP, a number of people were moving to us because we were able to service them where the other banks couldn't. And we had a lady that moved a right large relationship to us, and I called her to thank her and ask her, why us? And she said she's just happy to have someone's phone number where she can call a real person. And so our team that goes out, I call them the visiting angels, they go out and service our cash management customers, and they give their cell phone numbers to them. So that if they have a problem, they call someone's directly to a cell number, and that's very much appreciated. That's a far cry from calling a call center somewhere where no one knows you.
Yeah.
So, anyway, about the history of Anderson Brothers Bank, we began in 1933. My grandfather, Ernest Anderson, and his oldest brother, Bishop Anderson, started the bank here in Mullins, and it started in the back of a tobacco warehouse that my great uncle owned, not 2 blocks from where I am. And there had been 2 banks in Mullins before that, and both of them had failed, I think, in 1932. And so there was no bank in Mullins. And back at that time, Mullins was becoming a very prosperous small town driven by tobacco. And both my grandfather and his brother were in the tobacco business separately. They were in the tobacco warehouse business. And tobacco warehouse, it sounds like it's a storage facility, but it's not. It's where the farmers bring their tobacco to a warehouse, and then the
auction.
Right, and then you hire an auctioneer, and then invite the tobacco companies to bring their buyers in, and you have an auction for tobacco for the farmers. And so, of course, the farmers want to get paid immediately after selling their tobacco, but the companies aren't going to pay the warehouse for another 60 days or so. So they needed a way to make sure that industry continued, and so they started a bank. And as I say, that was in 1933. Now, at that time, they named it after themselves, of course, and that was a common practice then. And that wasn't just a matter of ego. It was really a declaration of accountability. If you can imagine, banks were failing all over. And so they named it after themselves to say, we are the Anderson brothers and we're accountable for the safety and soundness of your deposits. Keeping in mind, there was no FDIC at that time, no accounting standards, et cetera. So that became a common practice then. And it was a 50-50 partnership between the two of them that lasted 60 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, 60 years until I came to work for the bank in 1979, and it was such a different day. We didn't have any computers in the bank. I don't think we had any electronic calculators. We had some big calculators that looked like a boat anchor, and we had some posting machines.
Is that the one where they had the big handle on it? You pull the handle?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Okay.
that's where I started. And we had these ginormous ledgers that we use that really are interesting to look at now. There was no account numbers on consumer checks. There used to be a thing called counter checks. And if you went into a merchant, you would see they would have a stack of counter checks from the various banks around town, and you just sign your name on it, and you had no personalized checks, no account number. We would identify the owner of the checking account by their signature. So, and then if you wanted a CD, you could get you had two choices. You could get a 30-month CD at 7% or 60-month CD at 7.5%. And that was by regulation. That was it. Wow. Yep.
Yeah. It's hard to find those nowadays.
You got that right. So in 1993, as I say, that was in the 60 years, and our cousins sold us their interest in the bank. And we owned 100% of the bank at that time. We were about a $55 to $60 million bank with a branch in Ainer, which we had from the early 60s, and a branch in North Myrtle Beach. And it's the same branch we have now at North Myrtle Beach. But the difference now is we were the first and only entity out there on that track. And I used to have friends who just asked me why we built a branch in the country, because it was not the track that it is now. It's completely filled up now with hotels and restaurants and whatnot. But at the time, there was nothing there. And that branch was so new, and we were so unsuccessful at that time in North Myrtle Beach. We literally trying to save money. We took this ATM out and sold it, and boarded up the window where the ATM was. And it was that way for a number of years until we finally found our way in North Myrtle Beach.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
So in 2000, we merged. We had another bank that we had controlling interest in. It was Anderson State Bank in Hemingway, Johnsonville, and Kingstree. And my brother, Neil, my oldest brother, Neil, was the CEO of that bank. And after a board meeting, he looks at me and says, I don't really care about being CEO. You seem to like it more than I do. Why don't we put these banks together? I'll be executive vice president, you be CEO, and we'll realize the benefits of combining these two banks. So in June of 2000, we combined the two banks. At that time, we were about a $160 million bank, maybe had 10 or less branches, I think. And then, of course, the next big thing on our history was, the 2008 to 2012. And everybody in this area knows what happened then. That was the Great Recession.
Yeah.
And it turned out for us to be the Great Enlightenment, because we learned a lot about how to run a bank. And if you learn from your mistakes, well, this bank went to college on my mistakes, and we made a lot of them. And
went to college on my mistakes.
Yeah, that was all me. And we're very fortunate in that just in the nick of time, at the urging of the examiners, we brought Rusty Richardson over, who was a branch manager at the time, to be our chief credit administrator, which is a new position. And then we brought his CSR at that branch, Dean Goldway, to come over to be our financial officer. Now she's our chief financial officer. But if we had not had those folks, I can't imagine how we got through this, because we were deaf, dumb, and blind to the risk that we had there. And they were so instrumental in helping us get out of that. And I can't leave out Mickey Watts. We had an indirect car loan business, and we were able to ramp that portfolio up from 25 million to 65 million in fairly short order. And that was vital to us to offset any losses we had in our commercial portfolio.
Spoken like a true CEO, knowing who has helped you along the way.
Well, I've had a lot of help, brother. You can believe that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. So, for the most part, when people like myself or other retirees are dealing with a bank branch, we get used to the teller person that we're dealing with. Right. But a lot of times these banks get gobbled up. I mean, they're here today, they're gone tomorrow, swallowed up by a bigger bank. I mean, there's even an expression, small bank gets eaten by a big bank. I mean, but Anderson Brothers has been around since like you said, 33.
Right.
By the way, here's the Jeopardy clue, by the way.
Okay.
Anderson Brothers Bank was founded in 1933 in the depths of this to give desperately needed support to South Carolina farmers. And the answer was the Great Depression.
Right. Yep. That's it.
Yeah. So how has Anderson Brothers kind of avoided being gobbled up?
People ask me that from time to time, not as often as they used to, but I tell you, frankly, I've never had a serious thought or a conversation about selling. It's not what we do. I mean, if your family is fortunate enough to have a bank charter and you kind of know what to do with it, then you'd be a bonehead to sell it. So, two, we are a bit of a different type bank. We're kind of a proprietary business model that other banks don't understand and probably wouldn't have an interest in doing, even though the returns are superior. It's not typical bank business. So I think that keeps some folks away as well. But we got no interest in selling. We got a fourth generation already in here working. It's just no interest in selling whatsoever. It's never been a serious question. And it would be a step back for me personally on every front. I think about personally, what do I do with all these folks that are here that I've worked for decades with? They're going to be out of, if somebody buys us, they don't need but one branch in Mullins. We got 12 buildings in Mullins. And I think, well, what on earth's going to become of our downtown and all these buildings? I couldn't bear that and see what would happen to the town with all these vacant buildings. So it's not an issue for us. And we think more like stewards anyway. As I say, I'm third generation. We got a fourth generation in here. So we're thinking long-term about the new generation and next generation and passing it on to them. So selling is just not a thing to do. Plus, there's so many advantages to having a bank as a family asset. It's a great industry. Banking is. You got wonderful associations and schools and conventions and webinars. You meet people from all over the state from other banks, and they'll be lifelong friends. It requires a fairly high standard of competence. We're highly regulated by the FDIC and the state and the Federal Reserve as well. And to meet their demands, you got to be fairly competent. You got to be well behaved in your community. I think there's a lot of advantages. On the investment side, which you would be interested in, it provides a vehicle to generate and reinvest at high returns. If you run a bank properly, you can get fairly high returns. And then as the bank is growing, you got an opportunity to reinvest in the bank at high returns as well. So that's kind of the holy grail of investments, I think. It also ties you to your community. It gives you a vested interest in your community, both as a leader, a booster, a contributor, a participant, all those things. So we like that part of it. And you provide you a work family of your choosing, because I work with people that I like and respect, and they are all of my choosing. So for all those reasons, selling the bank is just not something in our wheelhouse. It's not something that we would consider as long as we don't have to.
Yeah. It's almost like, let's say you had a goose that lays golden eggs. You're just like trying to cut the head off the goose.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like you're getting all these benefits all along. Why give that up for some potential lump sum? And then what? You're left with nothing.
Exactly. Yeah. What are you going to do now?
Yeah, exactly. But you all these different things that you're talking about. And this is for the professionals out there that are listening, and all, guess what? The retirees too, is that you're living your life, and what you do, who you surround yourself with, are extremely important in your well-being. And it sounds like the kind of culture that you guys have created at Anderson Brothers, leads to a happy work environment and prosperous, and also good for the community as well.
Well, we hope so. Our mission is to create value for our employees, customers, communities, and shareholders, and we hope we do that. And so I've never worked anywhere else as an adult. I've had other jobs when I was a kid, but never anywhere else as an adult. And so I don't know the difference, but they're the folks that we hire from other institutions. They tell us our culture is unique and it's different, and they like it and they respond to it. So I take their word for it. We try to support them in what they do and support the culture.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's understandable. It seems like it's been a tremendous success in that regard. Yeah. As far as supporting the community, I'm at the PD Academy, which is not far from Mullins, or actually, is it in Mullins or is it in Marion technically?
between Mullins. I don't technically it's between Mullins and Marion. It's not in either one.
Okay. And so the first thing that comes to mind when they have a fundraiser, they call you guys to get.
Yeah. They do, and everybody else does. But we're a community bank. I mean, how are they not call us? So
exactly.
We're happy to do that, and we love giving back to our community. In fact, we've had a program for several years now, what we call the designated donor program, and we select 20 employees that we allocate them $10,000 to give away in there to causes that are important to them. They can give it away in $2,500 blocks, and so we put back $200,000 every time this year. We just started this week. And so we love giving back to the community. That's just what we like to do.
Yeah. And you certainly have done that. And it seems like when it's like some ivory tower somewhere, that some big Fortune 500 company that you don't know, it's being able to not only affect the employees, the customers, but also using some of that goodwill and cash to help little league baseball teams and things like that really do what they need to do.
Well, we should do it. I mean, Mullins gave us our start. Now, Mullins has fallen on hard times. It's coming back now, but it's been on hard times for a number of years. But, it gave us our start. It might not provide us with much growth opportunity, but it gave us our start. So we're happy to give back to our community and all the other communities we're in.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. And guess what? We all started somewhere, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. What's the future look like for Anderson Brothers? What are you thinking? Or is it just?
Well, let me tell you, going back to the history in 2012, we got really, really lucky. We were coming out of the recession and we were back to profitability, and we needed some bankers. We lost a couple of bankers along the way. And it just so happened, I think there was 5 banks in our area that went under or were taken over or whatever. But anyway, the best banks became disenfranchised. The best bankers, I should say, became disenfranchised. The bank that they were working at, that they made a choice to work at, was no longer who they were working for.
Yeah.
So we went seeking some bankers to fill some position we had, and we were very fortunate. One of the first rainmaker bankers we had was Brian Leonard's, and we needed a branch manager in Conway. And so I saw an old banker I knew over there and said, "Who's the best banker in Conway?" He said, "Brian Leonard's, but you'll never get him." I said, "Why not?" I said, "He'll never come to work for a little podunk family-owned bank in Mullins like you." So, okay. So I called Brian. And anyway, long story short, we tricked him into coming. And, he didn't want, not for the branch manager in Conway, but he was so compelling. We created a new position for him, a regional director basically for Horry County and now the Grand Strand. And that was a new concept for us. Hard to imagine that we had never thought of that, putting a number of branches under a leader, but we never had. So he was our first regional executive. And so he came on board. The first thing Brian did, I've never seen a new hire do before, is he started interviewing the best bankers he knew. He didn't go after customers. He went after the best bankers. And ultimately, we got a number of those, and he's continued to attract the best bankers. And among those, I have to mention Richard Carroll of our Conway office. He's done things with that branch in Conway that I'd never imagined a branch could do. So it's been a great experience. So those guys and my nephew Rivers Anderson and our Dean Goaway and some of the others, they're going to be our future for the bank. And what I think we'll do, we'll continue to build some branches. We've got 24 branches now. Hopefully we'll have 26 within a year or so. Mm-hmm. And we'll just kind of keep, when there's opportunities, we'll look to that to open branches. When I say opportunities, I'm talking people. If we could attract the best bankers in markets, and we'll continue to expand that way.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll continue to expand our indirect car lending business. We're in South Carolina, North Carolina, and Georgia now, and the Southeast is our potential. So we'll continue doing that. And then we have a very robust consumer lending business. And you may think, well, don't all banks make consumer loans? And you'd be surprised, I think, just to hear what I'm getting ready to tell you. It's my favorite statistic in all the world. But if you look at what's called a Uniform Bank Performance Report, which is a report developed by the regulators, and they give it out every quarter, you can see in that banks in our peer group, which is banks like us, our size, in the Southeast, You see that most banks, or the average, our peer group bank, has less than 3% of their loans in non-real estate consumer loans, whereas we have 36% of our portfolio in non-real estate consumer loans.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're a very different animal than a typical bank, largely because of that. So we're going to continue to expand along those three things. And of course, our mortgage business, we're working hard to expand that, to get that so we're ready to be a bigger contributor to the profitability of the banking. And in certain markets, when we hit a refi, the next refi boom, it could be a real driver of our earnings.
Right. It could. So what I get from this, number one, is that you guys are nimble. Number two, you look for a talent.
Right.
But how that translates to a consumer when they walk in the door or they pick up the phone is, that it didn't have to fit into this pristine square box.
No.
And if it doesn't, and if it doesn't fit in this box, it all of a sudden doesn't work, which is what it may have to do with these larger institutions. That you guys actually kind of think through the project or the deal or what the customer's really trying to accomplish and try to provide them a solution for what they want to accomplish.
Yeah. Let me tell you my story on consumer lending. I believe what we do on the consumer lending is a noble calling. And I mean that with all my heart. And here's why. Our target market there is folks who have a credit score of 550 to 660. Now, most banks that do any consumer lending, they get below 660, they get a little squirrely and don't really want to pursue that. But it's our bread and butter in that business. And it's great business. These are working people that need a car or whatever, some help. We asked one of our employees to go to a large finance company, a nationwide finance company in our market, and say, go borrow $7,500 and bring it back to us, and let's compare it to what it would do if you borrowed that same money from us. And so we did, and on a $7,500 5-year loan, we could save him about $6,000.
What?
Yeah, I knew it was a lot, but it was astounding to me. They were charging 36%. We're charging 12 to 14, somewhere along there.
What?
So the challenge has been getting that word out, because people don't go to banks for those kind of loans, so they can come to us, but they don't know that. So we've spent a lot of money in marketing trying to get that word out, because that's not life-changing kind of money, but it's big money in my view.
Well, if you're spending $7,500 on a car and you spend $6,000 more borrowing it from another institution, that's a lot of money to that person.
It absolutely is, and that's the message that we're trying to get out, and we're having success in there. We learned that when we put a branch in Dillon, and we were getting no business, and then I realized, they got First Citizens and First Bank over there, which are large commercial banks, and they don't know they can go to a bank and get a $5,000 or $10,000 unsecured loan or what have you. So we got that was our challenge. And that was our challenge in Somerville. We got a branch there. Nobody knew us there. And we had to spend a lot on billboards to say, hey, you can come here and get a finance company loan, but pay bank rates.
Wow. So that's, you're kind of going where a lot of other banks don't go, and that, you're filling a need in that market.
Yeah. And my background, as we both talked about, I'm from Mullins. So we've made these loans for our whole career. We just didn't know that we were unique in it until we did. And we said, hey, this is something we can do. And it will be a competitive advantage, and it will really serve our community. And as I say, I think it's a noble calling to say that kind of money for people. Yeah.
I mean, no question. I've read stories about people lending money to buy hammers in Africa and things like that like very low microfinance loans,
right? And
how big of a difference it makes for someone to be able to get tools or vehicles and being able to use them and operate them. And so, and they need institutions like yourself to be able to make that happen.
Yeah. Like I said, we make a difference on the consumer side. We make a difference in folks' life. On the commercial side, we make it easy.
Yeah. Now that's a true statement.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I've had clients who want to get something done. No, okay. Now I'm not going to say the name, right?
Right.
But I worked at a previous place, and they told me I couldn't refer business over to Anderson Brothers Bank. Okay.
All right.
And the reason was, is that they wanted me to refer it to their bank. And I knew good and darn well this particular person wouldn't be served at that bank, in that banking institution. It was outside of a box that they wanted to fill.
Right.
And guess what, David, that's conflicts of interest. All right.
Mhm.
And that was the turning point in my career where I decided I had to open up Riverbend. I needed to be in a place where I could refer the person to the right institution without conflicts of interest. So, that's one thing about Anderson Brothers that comes to mind is that, hey, when you walk in the door, you're being helped with your finances, your loans and your checking accounts and things like that. You're not being bombarded by cross-selling and things like that. So that's a big plus in my book.
Yeah, you got to have the best interest of the customer at heart, or you won't be here for long.
That's right.
Or you won't prosper anyway.
That's right. That's right. So, David, operating a bank like this and leading all these people and delivering massive value to your customers, what's the vision of Anderson Brothers and the mission and the values and how that translates to the people who work with your company and use your services?
Right. Let me first talk about vision. I was at a John Maxwell conference, and we were going through an exercise, said everybody write down your vision statement for your company. And at that time, we didn't have a vision statement. And then the proctor or whoever it was came out and said, well, what's your vision statement? I said, I don't have one. He said, you got to have one, this exercise. And he was adamant about it. So I said, fine. Our vision is to be the bank where people love to work and do business. I really wasn't serious about it at the time, but it stuck. And because I started thinking, if you're providing a place of employment where people love to work and they love to do business, and you're doing a lot of things right, and they choose what's of value to them, what they love to do and what they love about the bank. So that stuck, and it seems to have resonated with folks. And so that became our vision statement. And so if you see my email, you see that's on all of our emails, striving to be the bank where people love to work and do business. And that's very true. On the mission statement back in 1986, we hired a fellow from Myrtle Beach, and I assume he's still around, Pizza Reynolds, came in to do some corporate development type work for us. And they worked with maybe 4 of us in the leadership team then. And he asked us all to write a mission statement. And I was very young and ambitious, and I really thought a lot about it. And I came up with the idea, at the time, everyone's mission statement that you learned in college was to maximize shareholder returns. Mm-hmm. And I thought, that doesn't even turn me on. I don't know why it turned anybody else on.
Yeah.
So I came up with the idea, well, we're here to create value for our employees, our customers, our communities, and our shareholders. And then we will create value for our employees by providing a place where they love to work. We'll create value for our customers by providing a place they love to do business. We'll provide value for our communities by being a participant, a booster, and a leader. And we'll provide value for our shareholders in the successful pursuit of this mission. And that's been our mission statement for now on, over 30 years.
Wow.
And then the values was really a difficult thing for me to determine. I knew I wanted leadership. Our values are leadership, teamwork, going the extra mile, golden rule, and ownership. And I knew that leadership and teamwork were part of our values. And I wanted to discover, I felt like the need to discover A, who we are, and B, who we aspire to be. So our values are that. They are who we are, who we genuinely are. And then who we also aspire to be. So they're two things simultaneously. And so leadership, of course, I got some of that from a lot of that from John Maxwell. Everything rises and falls on leadership. And I believe that is absolutely true. I've served under bad leaders, and I know that what they can really stink things up. And you served under good leaders, and how what a booster that is. Teamwork, none of us is smart as all of us. And I absolutely believe that's true. My breakthrough was when I finally thought of the golden rule as a corporate value, and I had never seen it as a corporate value then. I have seen it since then, but I thought, that is perfect. That's a useful value. If anybody's doing anything, there's no policy or no precedent. Just think, well, how would I want to be treated under circumstances? And it's the golden rule. So that was a breakthrough, and then quickly added going the extra mile, which of course is from Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich that I read as a young man. And then ownership, run it like you own it. That's what we want our folks to feel like for their departments and their branches and their regions. We want them to run it like they own it.
Wow. Yeah. Wonderful. And when you got happy employees and a happy culture like that, that leads over into the experience when someone walks in your door or, gives y'all a call.
Yeah, no question it does. It's a huge advantage to have happy employees that love where they work.
Yeah, definitely.
The values thing, we recently started something that I credit Richard Carroll in our Conway office for stumbling onto this after trying a lot of things, but we're trying to find a way, how do we enhance and promote our culture and strengthen it? And after doing a number of things, he started with what we call book clubs. And he uses a John Maxwell coach, Richard Causey in Conway, and who comes and conducts those book clubs for us. But they'll select a personal development or like 7 Habits or the 1 Minute Manager, some of those books. And you'll have a group of 10 to 12 employees from different branches that they don't really know each other. And they'll read a couple of chapters of those books. And for 5 or 6 weeks, they'll meet one day a week for an hour and they'll talk about the book. And I've attended a few of these, and I was amazed at how they've taken our values to heart.
Really?
I mean, I almost got embarrassed because they're the values I came up with, I discovered, and they're talking about them like they belong to them, and they do. So I was really delighted to hear how they'd embraced our values.
Wow!
So they're as real to them as they are to me.
That's what you would want, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And so what that means to me is that when you not only talk a talk, but you walk the walk, it does affect the people that you're around.
It in a larger way than I ever anticipated. It
really
does. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was taken aback. I had no idea that our values and mission and vision meant so much to our folks.
Well,
I was delighted.
Yeah. Well, it goes to show you that twofold. Number one, that you walk your walk. And number two, you hired the people that believe in that. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And I guess I've, had Riverbend for a little over 3 years now. And it's a little bit different animal than working for a big institution and thinking along those lines. And I'm listening to you and I'm learning from you during this process. So
that's a scary thought.
Well, look, if I somehow get close to it after 40-year career and doing the things that you've done in this wonderful bank and impacted your employees, your customers, your institution, and the towns and cities that your bank operates in, if I can come close to that, that'll be a tremendous success. I mean, really.
Well, thank you for that. Let me tell you the interesting thing about this is success doesn't feel at all like or is not exactly what I thought it would be. Right at this point in my career, I'm just a teammate on a team, and my role is unique in that my role is to support my teammates. And nobody else on my team, has that role. They've got their own departments and regions and whatnot, but my role on the team is merely to support my teammates.
Yeah, God.
They'll do the work. They know what they're doing. They don't look to me for permission, or they don't hardly tell me what they're doing most of the time. So,
yeah.
I got that kind of trust and confidence in them, and they're of that caliber.
You got the train going. All you do is just monitor it. That's
exactly.
It. Yeah, that's fantastic.
It's what Jim Collins calls the flywheel, and that's exactly right.
Okay. Well, what would be like the one or two things that you can think of that was most impactful from you going through your growth from, say, 1983 all the way up until today? Is there one thing that you can think of that was most impactful for you?
That even though I'm the CEO, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I'm not the most capable. I'm not the most energetic. There's people in this bank that are more talented than I am, and be generous with the credit. Take the blame, but be generous with the credit. And I can do that with all honesty. As I say, my role now is to support my teammates, make sure that I praise them and give them credit, because it's them that's making it happen.
Wonderful.
So that was a lesson I learned. When I was younger, I was less generous and more concerned about how I look in the bank. And now that's a thing of the past now.
Yeah. Well, you've really, whatever you're doing it right. Okay.
Well, I'm not doing much. That's what's interesting about it.
Well, you got the flywheel going. So,
yeah.
Well, thank you for everything that you do and what Anderson Brothers Bank provides to the community and its customers and a lot of my clients. And so really, thank you for being on the Retire Happy podcast. And I appreciate you coming and sharing your insights.
Well, Jeremy, I appreciate the opportunity. I've enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
David and Jeremy, this has been fantastic. David, I hope you don't mind me saying this. I wish I lived closer because I feel like you, Jeremy, and I could just sit down and have some barbecue.
Yeah.
Just hang out and talk. I'm telling you, right? What a great podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And David, if people want to learn more about you or they want to connect with you, how do they do that? What's the best way to reach out and talk to David?
Just call us at 464-6271. I'm here most every day, so I'm not hard to find. Like I said, I've been in the same place for 42 years.
You're the one wearing the engineer hat. That's what I hear.
Exactly right. Yeah.
All right. Right on. You get to wear the fancy hat. Everybody else does the work on the train. We love that.
Right.
All right, David, thank you so much for being on the show. Jeremy, wow, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for bringing David on the show.
Yeah. Just good people, good conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing is that, you're all about relationships and connecting with folks. If folks want to reach out to you and chat more about what you do, Jeremy, how's the best way to get a hold of you?
You can call 843-970-1049 or go to riverbendwealthmanagement.com. And or feel free to send me an email at jeremy@riverbendwm.com.
Fantastic. All right. And of course, our last thank you is going to go to you, the listening audience. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Retire Happy podcast with Jeremy Finger. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Jeremy comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. And we humbly ask that you share this podcast, rate it, and leave a review, as this actually does help others find the show. Again, thanks for listening today. For everyone at Riverbend Wealth Management, this is Eric Johnson reminding you that if you want some good barbecue and good conversation, these two guys are up for it anytime. Anytime. Oh, well, I'll use my normal clothes. All right. Hey, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Retire Happy podcast with certified financial planner Jeremy Finger. If you have any questions, please visit us at www.riverbendwealthmanagement.com or call us at 843-970-1043. And remember, click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available.
Investment advice offered through Stratus Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor doing business as Riverbend Wealth Management. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision.